Ever get that creepy feeling when you hear someone got tricked and you think, wow, how'd they not see that coming?
Yeah.
Well, get ready, because we're really diving deep today into the world of dark psychology. We're going to unpack this book, Dark Psychology, the practical uses and best defenses of psychological warfare in everyday life.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it is intense.
It really is. But the thing is, it's not just like, criminal masterminds or anything like that.
Right.
This stuff it's happening all around us.
Yeah.
Every day.
Totally. And what's wild is that it's often like the people closest to us, right? Partners, friends, even family, who can use these tactics, maybe without realizing it.
Yeah.
It's like, who hasn't been guilt tripped into doing something they did not want to do?
Exactly. And that's what makes this book so fascinating. It exposes those subtle, almost like invisible strings that people can pull.
Yes.
To influence us, our thoughts, our actions.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. The book defines dark psychology as basically the study of how people intentionally use psychological tactics to harm others.
And what's really important to understand here is that it's not always about just straight up malicious intent. Sometimes people use these tactics and they don't even realize it. It's almost like a subconscious playbook for getting what they want.
So we're talking about everyday manipulation, not like Hannibal Lecter stuff.
Right, exactly. Like the book, it gives this crazy example of an online gamer who manipulates a younger player into giving away valuable virtual items.
Wow.
It's subtle, it's calculated, and it really preys on that younger player's, naivety and trust.
Speaking of trust, that reminds me of that story in the book about the woman who was scammed by her fiancé.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Heartbreaking. She truly believed he loved her.
Right.
And he totally exploited that.
And that's it's insidious.
Yep.
About dark psychology.
Yeah.
It often exploits our most basic human needs, our desires for connection, love, belonging. Yeah. Manipulators are experts at sniffing out our vulnerabilities.
This is what I find so fascinating and terrifying. How do these dark practitioners, like the book calls them, how do they actually pinpoint our weaknesses? Is it like a formula?
It's not exactly a formula, but the book does highlight some really, really common tactics.
Okay.
Like take deceptive affection, for instance.
Okay, that sounds creepy. Break it down.
It's basically faking emotions, like affection, empathy, even love, to gain someone's trust and then exploit them.
Wow.
The book actually argues that it's one of the most effective and disturbing forms of manipulation.
So it's like you're building a foundation of false intimacy to get what you want.
Exactly. And because it plays on that deep-seated need for connection, it can be so difficult to recognize, let alone resist.
It makes you think twice about anyone who seems a little too charming, right?
It really, really does. And the book dives into even more unsettling tactics.
Okay.
Like gaslighting.
Oh, where someone tries to make you doubt your own sanity?
Precisely. Like the book gives this chilling example of a husband who convinces his wife she's imagining things.
Oh, wait, hold up. Before we get too deep into the examples, let's just step back for a sec.
Yeah.
You mentioned vulnerabilities earlier.
Right.
And the book talks about how we are susceptible to this stuff in areas we often consider safe, which I found so interesting. When we think about manipulation, we often picture those slick con artists or masterminds. But this book really emphasizes how it's often in the most unexpected places.
It's true. And it really shines a light on how vulnerable we are in areas like love and relationships.
Totally.
Places where we're naturally inclined to trust.
Yeah. And that's what really got me was the chapter about manipulation in romantic relationships.
Right.
It's we've all heard those cautionary tales, but this book takes it to a whole nother level.
It talks about how our desire for love and connection can actually blind us to red flags. That we might overlook those early warning signs because we're so invested in this idea of the relationship.
It's like we're wearing rose-colored glasses and we just totally miss the manipulation happening right in front of us.
And the book argues that manipulators often prey on this.
Wow.
They know that when we're emotionally invested, we're more likely to rationalize bad behavior or dismiss those gut feelings that are telling us something's off.
Totally. And it reminds me of that example in the book.
Yes.
The woman who used sex as a bargaining chip to get her partner to do chores.
Yes. On the surface, it might seem like kind of a harmless game.
Yeah.
But it illustrates how manipulation can really seep into even the most intimate aspects of our lives.
Right.
And it normalizes a dynamic where one person uses their partner's needs and desires to control them.
And the scary part is it might not even be like conscious manipulation all the time. It's like these patterns of behavior just become like ingrained.
Absolutely.
And we just accept it.
And that's why self-awareness is so crucial.
Right.
The book talks about the importance of recognizing our own vulnerabilities.
Okay.
What are our emotional triggers? What are our deepest fears and insecurities? Because those are the very things manipulators are looking to exploit.
So it's about knowing ourselves
Yes.
as much as it is about knowing the tactic.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about understanding our own buttons so that we're less likely to let someone else push them.
I like that.
And the book doesn't just stop at romantic relationships.
Oh, really?
It delves into how our blind faith in certain ideologies or social media trends
Oh, wow.
can also make us vulnerable.
It's like we're all susceptible to being influenced.
We are.
And especially like in this day and age where there's so much information.
It's true.
It's like information overload.
It is. There are just so many voices, and it's easy to get swept up in the current. The book uses the example of those like viral social media challenges
Oh, gosh.
where people do risky or even dangerous things just to fit in.
Oh, right. Like that whole Tide Pod challenge.
Exactly. These trends highlight how easily we can be swayed by groupthink, even if it goes against our better judgment.
It was kind of unsettling
It is.
when you think about it, like how these unseen forces can shape us.
They do. They shape our perceptions, our behaviors.
Right. But knowledge is power.
Right.
So let's talk about that. Like,
Okay.
what can we do?
Yeah.
This book offers some advice
It does?
on how to like break free from this.
Yes, it does. And it starts with awareness.
Okay.
The first step is simply recognizing that we're being manipulated,
Yeah.
which, as we've discussed, can be harder than it sounds.
Because who wants to admit that they've been played?
Exactly. It can be a tough pill to swallow, but it's a necessary one.
Right.
And that's where trusting our instincts comes in.
So if our gut is telling us something's off, even if we can't explain it, we should listen.
Absolutely. The book emphasizes that our intuition is like a muscle.
Okay.
The more we use it, the stronger it gets.
Oh, interesting.
It talks about paying attention to those subtle cues.
Okay.
Like a feeling of unease, a nagging doubt, or even physical sensations like a racing heart.
It's almost like our body's trying to tell us something's up,
Yeah,
even if our brain hasn't like caught on yet.
exactly. Our instincts are like our internal warning system.
Right.
And the book, it reminds us that these instincts, they're rooted in like thousands of years of human evolution. Like our ancestors relied on their gut feelings to like survive threats.
Oh, wow.
So it's not, just some woo-woo concept.
Right.
It's literally wired into our DNA.
That's a good point. So how do we differentiate like those gut feelings from just like everyday anxiety or like paranoia? Because sometimes our minds can really go kind of crazy, right?
Right. That's where self-awareness really comes in. The book talks about understanding. Like, what are our emotional triggers? What are those buttons that those manipulators might be trying to push?
Right.
Once we know that, like what sets us off, then we can start to separate what's a genuine red flag versus, just our own stuff.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like filtering out the static so you can actually hear the message.
Precisely. And the book offers some other really great strategies for like breaking free.
Okay, like what?
Things like setting boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
Learning to say no without like feeling guilty, surrounding ourselves with a supportive network of people,
Yeah.
friends, family, people that actually have our best interests at heart.
Totally, because sometimes we need that outside perspective.
Absolutely.
Those like trusted voices to be like, hey, are you sure about that?
Because it's so easy to get isolated when we're being manipulated.
Right.
And that's what they want. They want to control the narrative. They want to cut you off from any support system that might, challenge their influence.
It's like they're trying to trap you in their web.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why reaching out, whether it's, trusted friends, therapists, or even like support groups, can be so powerful because it breaks that isolation and it allows you to reclaim your own agency.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of terrifying, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
To realize how easy it is to be manipulated. But it's also like really empowering to know that we have tools
We do. It's
to like protect ourselves.
Yes. The book, it doesn't sugarcoat the reality of dark psychology.
Right.
But it does ultimately leave us with this like sense of hope.
Okay, good.
Because it reminds us that knowledge is power.
Totally.
And that by understanding these tactics, trusting our instincts, we can navigate the world with more awareness, more resilience.
And hopefully build stronger, healthier relationships, right?
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, it's about connecting with people from a place of authenticity and trust.
Right. Not being controlled.
Exactly.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive here, I think the biggest takeaway for me is self-awareness.
Yes.
Knowing yourself, like, what are your vulnerabilities, and trusting your gut.
Yeah.
Because those are the keys to like unlocking your power and living a better life, really.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, keep exploring this. Pay attention to the dynamics in your own life. Trust those gut feelings.
Yeah.
And, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Absolutely.
Because knowledge is power. And the more you know, the better you'll be.
Exactly.
At navigating like all the complexities of, just being a person.
Being human.
Being a human, yeah.